came to separate your household. That's Jesus talking. I don't know where the church world got all this family stuff from. I don't know where to get that ain't what the Bible teaches. It's definitely been true in my life. I mean, if you got a couple that can work it out in the family, in Christ and God, doing it God's way, more power to them. I'm happy for them. That's not the norm. That's an exception to the rule. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in his prison. So he became a trustee of the prisoners. Joseph is like cream rising to the top. God always gives him favor wherever he's at. Now he was a trustee in Potiphar's house. Now he's a trustee in the prison. See how God works even in your circumstance. You'll have it better than the other people in the same circumstance. And whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it. The keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him. And that which he did, the Lord made it prosper. And it came to pass after these things that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended their lord, the king of Egypt. I mean, you guys follow Tree Priest Ministry, you know, I done taught you enough about kings in the Bible, the Old Testament. I mean, they had the power of life and death. You know, just if you was to come into the king's presence, the king had a rod. If he was to tilt it forward, you can come and you touch the top of it, announcing it. Or if you can go to the right or to the left, you could either go to prison or get your head chopped off or hung, whichever. So he had power of life and death. He just didn't run up on the king and say, hey, yo, what's going on, king? It might be the last thing you say. So the butler and the baker pissed the king off. And they're lucky they didn't die. They could have got hung for that. But he threw them in prison. And Pharaoh was wroth against the two of his officers, against the chief of the butlers and against the chief of the bakers. And he put them in the ward of the house of the captain of the guard into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. So he goes into the royal prison. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph. These are for the white-collar criminals. We got a white-collar federal penitentiary for people that do this. This is that type of prison in their day. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them, and they continued a season in ward. And they dreamed a dream, both of them. Each man his dream in one night, each man according to the interpretation of his dream. The butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in the prison. And Joseph came in unto them in the morning, and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad. And he asked the Pharaoh's officers that were with him in the ward of his Lord's house, saying, wherefore look ye so sadly today? And they said unto him, we have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And Joseph said unto them, do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me them, I pray you. Now, Joseph's a dreamer himself. And I taught on it. I got a video on dreams. And you can get that video, and Joseph was part of that. But you had some of the other great visionaries and dreamers too. I believe Daniel and John the Revelator. And in that video, I'll talk about the dreams God had given me, so you might want to watch. And in the vine worth, excuse me. And they said in the women, in Jesus, verse 10, or verse 9, and the chief butler told his dream to Joseph, and said unto him, in my dream, behold, a vine was before me, and in the vine were 3 branches. And it was though it budded, and her blossoms shot forth, and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and he gave the cup, and I gave the cup unto Pharaoh's hand. And Joseph said unto him, this is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head and restore thee unto thy place. He's saying, in 3 days you're going to be let out of prison and you're going to get your old job back. And thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup unto his hand. You're going to be the butler again, handing him his wine. After the former manner which thou wast his butler. But think on me when it shall be well with thee. He said, when you get restored, think about me rotting in this prison here. You say, put a kind word into Pharaoh to pardon me. And show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me to the Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here I also have done nothing that they should put me into this dungeon. He said, I'm innocent on both counts. He said, I didn't do anything. My brother sold me into slavery, and I was falsely accused by Potiphar's wife of rape, which I didn't do. And I've been languishing here in this prison for years. Get me out of here. When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, verse 16, he said unto Joseph, I also was in my dream, and behold, I had 3 white baskets on my head. In the uppermost basket there was all manner of baked meats for Pharaoh, and the birds did eat them out of the basket up on my head. And Joseph answered him and said, this is the interpretation thereof. 3 baskets are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head from off thee, and shall hang thee on a tree. I don't think he liked his interpretation too. He said 3 days you're going to be out of prison too, and you're going to be hung. He really pissed the Pharaoh. Whatever he did, burned his bread or something. I don't know what he did. He said, he ain't getting out of there. The price tag is death. And he shall hang thee on a tree, and the birds shall eat thy flesh from off thee. So the bird's going to pluck your eyeballs and nibble on your skull while you're up there hanging from the tree. In other words, you're going to be up there for a minute. This is looking like vulture activity to me. And it came to pass the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief butler and of the chief baker, and he lifted up the head of the chief butler and of the chief baker among his servants, and he restored the chief butler unto his butlership again, and he gave the cup unto Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgot him. The man didn't keep his word. He went back to work and forgot all about Joseph. Now, in the Apocrypha, it says God was mad at Joseph for trying to get out, hurry up and speed real and get himself out of that circumstance. So God extended his time a little longer than if he would have kept his mouth closed and kept marching. And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, so God gave an additional sentence of 2 years for trying to figure a way out himself. God put you in a box. I learned, based on my own experience, best to stay in the box and be content. Paul talked about that he was content even though he was in a dungeon 19 feet in a hole underground in Rome. He learned to be content for whatever state that he was in. Because you know that God is with you, and God put you in that state for a reason, and he is with you. But the worst thing you want to do is try to escape that box God got you in, because he probably got a bigger and badder box for you. So I learned to be content with the box. You know, I might not, I mean, necessarily like the box, but you learn to be content knowing this is where God put you. This is where he placed you. Until he opens something else up, this is the place. And it came to pass, verse 41, Genesis. And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed. And behold, he stood by the river. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine and fat flesh. And they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean fish. So this is 7 cattle. 7 fat cattle came up first, and then 7 lean cattle, looked like they were starving, came up. And stood by the other kind that was up on the brink of the river. So the cattle stood together. They stood with them. And the ill-favored cattle, the ones that were starving, that looked like they were starving, kind did eat up the 7 well-favored fat kind. So Pharaoh woke, and he slept and dreamed a second time, and behold, 7 ears of corn came up on one stalk, rank and good. So some fat corn came up on the stalk, healthy. And behold, 7 thin ears, and blasted with the east wind sprung up after him. So 7 dead ears of corn came up, unhealthy looking. And 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank full ears. So he had the same dream. This is a different version of it. One had to do with cattle, one had to do with vegetation. And Pharaoh woke, and behold, it was a dream. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled. And he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all the wise men thereof. And Pharaoh told them his dream. But there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. And then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. Pharaoh was wroth with his servants, and put me in a ward in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. So now he's telling Pharaoh about Joseph. And we dreamed a dream in one night, and I was he. We dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And there was with us a young man, an Hebrew servant, to the captain of the guard, and he told him, and he interpreted our dream, to each man according to his dream as he did interpret. So he said, you remember Joseph. He said, Joseph nailed our dream, got it accurate. Exactly the way he told it is what happened. And it came to pass, verse 13, it came to pass, as he interpreted us, so it was. Me restored to mine office, and him he hanged. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon. And he shaved himself and changed his raiment, and came unto Pharaoh, got himself cleaned up. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. And I have heard say of thee that thou canst understand a dream to interpret it. Now I want you to pick up on something very subtle. It was Joseph's dreams that got him banished from his brethren and sold into slavery. And it's them same dreams and having the gift well-defined of interpreting dreams that could save Joseph from that prison. Think about that. The very instrument that was used to have him sold into slavery is the same instrument God's using to exalt him to the position and title you're about to read about. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, Is my dream, behold, I stood upon the bank of the river, and behold, there came up out of the river 7 kine, fat-fleshed and well-flavored, and they fed in the meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them, poor and very ill-favored, and lean-fleshed, such as I have never saw in all the land of Egypt for badness. And the lean and the ill-favored kine did eat up the first 7 fat kine. And when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them, but they were still ill-favored, as in the beginning. So I awoke. Said they didn't look no different. Even though they ate the fat ones up, they were still lean-looking. And I saw in my dream, and behold, 7 ears came up in one stalk, full and good. And behold, the 7 ears withered, thin, and blasted with the east wind sprung up after them. And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears. And I told this unto my magicians, but there was none that declared unto me. He said the soothsayers and the magicians, the magi, where we get the word magic from, the wise men of Egypt, they couldn't interpret the dream. And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, The dream of Pharaoh is one. God hath showed Pharaoh that what he is about to do. The 7 good kine are 7 years. The 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one. Saying it's the same dream, just different version. 2 is the number of adequate witness. That's why God gave him 2. And the 7 thin and all favored kine that came up after them are 7 years. And the 7 empty years blasted with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine. So you're going to get 7 years of famine. You're going to get 7 years of plenteous first, and then 7 years of famine. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh, what God is about to do to show it thee unto Pharaoh. Verse 29, Behold, there came 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt, and there shall rise after them 7 years of famine, and all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of the famine following, for it shall be very grievous. So he said, you ain't going to remember all how well you guys ate in the 7 years, because it's going to be destroyed by the 7 years of famine. And for that dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice, it is because the thing is established by God, and God will surely bring it to pass. Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. And let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up a 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. So he said, reserve a 5th part of the land, 20%. Put away 20% during the plenteous 7 years. So you need to store some grain, put food away for the hard time. And let them be gathered all the food of the good years that come, and lay corn upon the land of the Pharaohs, and let them keep food in the cities. And the food shall be for stored to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt. So you wanted to set up some granaries, places to store the grain, that the land perish not through the famine. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto the servants, Can we find such a one as this is, a man whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, For as much as God hath showed thee all these things, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house. According unto my word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. So God elevated Joseph to second in command of Egypt. But you know what kind of power that was? He went from prison to being second in command in Egypt. He said, only in the throne will I be greater than you. In other words, you're going to rule Egypt. And only in the throne am I greater. I'll have the final word. But I trust your discretion in anything you tell a guy to go, you better go. You tell him to do it. You're like Pharaoh. You're like me. He's an honorary Pharaoh. It's called a vicer. That was the title they had in Egypt. He's the vicer. Very powerful governor. Like I said, it's like the vice president. He's like the vice president of the United States. Still has power. See how God does. Now, another thing I wanted to touch on, and I'm hoping you get inspiration for this, because you see what Joseph went through, and we touched on it. And another thing I want to do is to prove up God, always my intent, to prove up God's word. Now, Joseph's name is Imhotep, and he can be looked up in the history. They done discovered his tomb. Joseph is no fictional character. Archaeologists, as usual, and paleontologists have discovered. Ron Wyatt was chief among them first. They found the granaries that Joseph set up to ensure that they got through that famine. God's word is true. It's not fiction. It's fact, my friend. And you can look it up. I'll definitely have it up on my social media site. But you can look it up for yourself. Google Ron Wyatt and Discovery of Pharaoh in Egypt. Discovery of Joseph as the junior Pharaoh of Egypt. He was called the vicer. But they found it. They found his bust. They done found everything. They found the granaries, his tomb. It's now a historical fact that Joseph did exist. And that he did rule Egypt. They even found a tablet talking about the Pharaoh's dreams. And it wanted to interpret his name, Imhotep, means voice of God. That's what Pharaoh just said here. He said, you speak with the voice of God. Ain't nobody with this kind of wisdom. Joseph was before Solomon. Solomon is a descendant of Joseph. But Joseph was the first Solomon, if you can follow that. He was the wisest man of the East in his day. People came from around the world to hear his wisdom. He was the Solomon of his day. Matter of fact, a lot of the sayings and proverbs that the Egyptians had cited, and some of them had ripped off centuries later, those was Joseph saying. It's like an unknown author says something, the guy grabs what he says and claims it as his own original thought. And that's what happened with Joseph. They stole a lot of his proverbs and certain men. It's been so long since I studied that subject. It's a couple of famous Egyptian philosophers that stole everything Joseph had said and attributed it to their own, put it in their own, got credit for themselves. They plagiarized what Joseph had said. So anyway, that's another reason I like to go into history of God's word to prove up what God said something is something. And what are you going through? See what Joseph went through. Now, the Bible says we're going to rule and reign with Christ. We're going to be kings and priests under him. So everything you're going through is for a reason. Like I said, with Joseph, he was sat in that. Joseph was approximately locked up 17 to 20 years falsely imprisoned, something he didn't do. But they said that the iron went into his soul. He was one tough cookie when he came out. What don't break you will make you. So whatever you're going through, I want you to, we have a bunch of promises Joseph didn't even have. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens. If God be for us, who could be against us? No weapon formed against us shall prosper. Behold, I've given you power to tread upon serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy. Nothing by any means shall hurt you. We have verse after verse that empowers us, and that's what faith is. This is what I teach. Claim these promises and come out smelling like a rose with Joseph. Joseph went through a lot of manure, but he came out smelling like a rose, like any other type of rose. So whatever you're facing, God is in control. I used to wear a hat, relax, God is in control, just to remind myself. I think I got to get another one of those hats. God is in control. You see what happened to Joseph. He rose from the dungeon to rule in Egypt. And his brothers did come and bow to him. His dream was true. They came, they felt it was a worldwide famine. Everybody had to come to Egypt. And they ended up coming to Egypt and bowing to Joseph. Didn't know that Joseph was now, really, like I said, he was like the Pharaoh of Egypt. So his brothers and his parents bowed to him, just like Joseph had the dream. God has a dream. Despite what you're going through, hold on to your dream, just like Joseph did. I went through a lot to get where I'm at, sitting here looking at you, trust me. There's people, like Joseph's brother tried to kill my dream off and me off too, through the crap I went through. You can persevere. Don't abandon your dream. That's what I want you to get out of this. God's in control. He's going to bring it to pass, okay? Now, we're going to get on giving as usual. Is how we end this message. The message is, if you've grown, Galatians 6 said, if you've been taught spiritual things, give material things. That includes some of you thieving pastors. There's been robbing street priest ministry for his sermons and spoon feeding them to your flock. You owe too. You could be not the seed God is not marked. What you sow, you'll reap. You come to streetpriestministry.org. It's a donate button. Give if you've been taught. Tithes, offerings, first fruits. Do it God's way. Let God bless you instead of curse you for not doing it this way. Keep your dreams. Don't get discouraged on your dreams. The message I want you to get out of this is keep your dreams. Don't let no one rob your dreams. God bless you. Good day. Good evening. Good night to you around the world. May you grow in faith in Jesus' name.